Hi everyone, Mr. Silva here, and this is the recording for Module 1 Markup Language and Site Development Essentials, and this is the recording for Day 8 of the unit. So in the last class we talked about making web pages that are accessible, and that we have the technology that allows us to do so, and most accessibility methods are rather easy to implement. So when designing your web page or your website, you want to have a plan. You don't want to go into it just not knowing what you're going to be doing or what's going to be included on it. So before you start with any HTML and before you start even writing the first line of code in your web page, you want to have a plan of what it's going to look like. So things that you could do, you could use a site diagram or you can use a storyboard, and make sure you know the difference between the two of those, because those do pop up and usually can be exam questions. The plan for this must include a statement discussing the purpose and audience, and of course that may change, but why is the site being developed? You want to make sure you understand why you're making that website and why is it going to be, made. You want to have a rough outline of the pages. This could be simple as listing, or you could draw out each individual page. Those of you who had me in the year past, you may remember how I had you sketch out what your page would look like, and that's kind of what this process is. You want to make sure you include your default or your home page, your sections, and an estimate of the technologies needed. And you want to make sure that when you are designing a web page or a website for a group or organization, you work with everyone, any stakeholder that's involved. If it's the person making the page, or the person that the page is being made for, or a member of the audience that's going to view this page, you want to make sure that everyone has a say and that everything works well with them. So wireframing, as I mentioned, wireframing is the process of developing an outline for a web presence. This is a visual representation of a page layout, and this is an example of a wireframe. As I mentioned a couple slides ago, that those of you who had me the year before may remember I had you do this. And so in this example, this little X over that represents a picture, because they're not going to draw out the picture. This gives you an outline of what it's going to look like and how it's going to look. You get a essential look at it without being too detailed. You begin exploring what it's going to look like without having too much detail. And as you can tell, it has fake text in it. I usually say draw squiggly lines, but you can do whatever you want. So the steps of the wireframe process. First is the purpose and objective of the site. Is it for e-commerce? Are you going to sell stuff? Is it for information? Or is it for a company? You want to make sure that you have the purpose and the objective down first thing. Who are the stakeholders? Your stakeholders are going to be the people that are going to be actively using your website. And you want to make sure it works for their needs and make sure that's aligned to what they need in order to do their job. You want to know the steps for the development process and the steps for managing the project. How long is it going to take to develop, and what are you going to do to help manage the project? You also want to have an outline of the site navigation, which pages are going to go to where, how many pages are you going to actually have, how are they going to be related, are you going to have sub-pages? You got to figure all of that out. Now, of course, this may all change as you're developing your website, but you want to have an idea out in the beginning from the get-go. You also want to identify any technologies that are requested by users and your stakeholders. When we say technologies, this could be forms, this could be media, this could be images, videos, audios, so on and so forth. So there is some wireframing software, Glyphy, Mockingbird, and Hot Glue. Those are up to you if you want to check those out. Usually I just say draw it out, but you can always use a computer to help you sketch it out. To determine the audience and the message, successful websites, as you know, will have a theme aimed at the correct group. Look at the Weather Channel's website. It gives the weather, but it's intended for a certain audience. It's intended for people who want to know what the weather is. When you go on the Weather Channel's website, you'll notice that the forecast bar is at the top, and it's rather prominent that you can search for your zip code and search for your city where you want to look for. They have the quick information that you want up front, so that you can access it quickly. So keep that in mind if you're building a website. what the theme is and how is it targeted towards them. You want to make sure you provide clear explanations and related services. You want to start with a strong message, and even a good-looking site, it will fail if there's no clear message. In order to gain input from others, this is a very important part when you're working in the web design process. Either if you're building a website for yourself, you want to make sure that you gather input from other people so they have a say and they can kind of help you, give you some advice. So input from others that may be important, customer representatives. So these are mostly for businesses. Your customer representatives, those are the people who work directly with customers and they know what the customer wants. So you want to ask them. This is more if you're building a business website. So get input from them. You want to get input from their suppliers. This again is for business. You want to make sure the people who are supplying you the products are able to handle the demand and what's going to be needed to be successful. Also, suppliers are going to tell you, what to feature, what to have up, and anything to make their lives easier. Also, your shareholders, these are the people who steer these are the people that steer your company. This is different from stakeholders. Shareholders are usually very involved in the business, and those are the ones that kind of help run and steer the company. So these are some design issues that you may need to validate and work through. The elements you display are just as important as the content. First thing is the message. You want to make sure that your message is coherent and consistent across each page. Don't lose focus of what the website's being designed for. Your fonts, you want to make sure that you have common fonts so that they can be read in multiple browsers and proper sizes. And you also want to make sure they look uniform. Uniformity is important in web design because you want to make sure that the people who visit your website know that they're on the same page. If you change something up, they may think, oh, you're on a different website now. Images, you want to make sure they contribute to the navigation or the message. You're not just putting an image up there for the sake of putting an image up there. And then color. You want to make sure you consider color combinations for attractiveness and readability. Some other validation issues that you might run into. Remember, when you are doing your website, there's multiple validations in the design process. You have organizational design standards. Make sure that you're following the requirements of your board and the people that you're designing for. You want to make sure you support your brand. And then, of course, we also talk about ethnic diversity. Make sure you're not offending users of another culture, using appropriate words, appropriate choices. You really want to think it through. And you also, in general, want to ask other people for advice. And it's usually helpful too, like if you are marketing in another country, ask someone in that country to kind of help you out and give you some feedback. Cultural and demographic concerns. This is an important topic, and this gets brought up very frequently anymore. First one, you want to make sure that you have a language choice. Most groups will use English. Most cultures use English. But other sites and other groups may need sites in various languages. Usually you should have 2 offerings if you really need to. If you have a language that's going to be spoken, like English may not be the first language, or English may be the second language, or the other language is the second language, like they're kind of close together. You want to make sure you have common color schemes. Some offensive colors do exist in different cultures, so make sure you do your research behind that. And you also want messages that appeal to customers. Your translations are also an impact here. You may need to alter your message if you present to another culture. Like I said, you may want to, if you are going to market in another country, hire someone from that country to kind of help you out. Either have a group of people or have someone from that country kind of help you out. That would be very useful to your benefit. All right, in summary, you need to have a plan before you even begin your website. You must wireframe first and then storyboard all elements as you go along. It's important to involve all applicable parties in the process, and you must also account for regional and cultural differences. All right, that's going to do it for this lesson.